I could buy the soap nozzle, but I don't think I want to bother.
No, don't bother with the soap. The soap is a trap. Today's video is brought to you by Panda Express.
In that case, I'm just going to waste a little bit of money on some cosmetic gloves, and we can get on with. We've actually got three options now. The dirt bike would be small and quick, or we've got the bungalow and the playground unlocked.
Oh man, the playground is a task. Bungalow or playground, whichever you want to do.
Yeah, screw it. Let's give the playground a run. This should be a nice long production. I've already done some housing and walls. Let's get something big.
Mmm.
All right, so yeah, I'm co-op enabled, so you should be able to join now.
Yeah, I see it. Loading dirt. All right. Let's get to work. Make sure these kids don't have any more typhus.
Yeah, I looked at this first bench and thought, that doesn't look terribly dirty, because I thought it was wood.
No, it's colored. It's colored. Starting with Mr. Stego Slide. Honestly, this is a pretty dope playground. Like, I would go to this playground. Kind of puts me in mind of Delaney a little bit. Just nostalgia-wise.
Yeah, I'm not fully decided on the, huge, soft plastic mat, because I was always used to something that was either,
wood chips.
Sand or wood chips or, the ground rubber.
Oh, I love that shaved rubber. Like the kind of stuff they would have at, climbing places.
Yeah.
Shaved
I don't
rubber.
think I ever went to a playground when I was young that had one of these big mats.
Yeah, it's just not as good as good old-fashioned creosote. I'm sure you'll get that text. I'll have to see. I'm not actually sure whether I'm going to divide this into 2 videos yet or not. But yeah, I feel like this is a good idea.
Yeah, this is fun. It's, especially for me, just having a conversation doesn't really focus my mind enough, but when I can do just a little bit, with my hands, it just makes it easier for me to stay focused on the whole experience.
Yeah, it's like guys talking while working on a truck. It's or while they're power washing in the real world. I feel like,
Yeah, it's a lot harder to have a proper conversation while you're power washing in real life.
What? Although it does kind of make you want to get a power washer, doesn't it?
Honestly, I kind of need one. The spider webs around the outside of our house are getting dire.
And the spiders are organizing.
Our front doorbell has a guard spider right now.
Oh no!
It's that bad.
Oh no! I recently had to deal with a cockroach that got into Mariah's shower that was rather large. We keep our balcony sliding door pretty much open all the time. Except for in the deep winter or when we have the AC on. But now that I've gotten my AC unit in my room, they just don't use the one in the living room anymore because I'm pretty much the only one that's home during the day. But on the plus side, we're probably going to have a smaller power bill this month, hopefully. Dear God, though, the first couple of days that I had the AC running, the amount of moisture it pulled out of the air. I was like, Jesus Christ, no wonder it's a sweat lodge in here.
Yeah, that's always the worst part. Especially me, I don't have a very good tolerance for low temperatures anymore, so even during the summers, I'm fine letting the indoor temperature get a fair ways up. But if the humidity inside gets bad, you need to turn on the AC for a while and bring that back down, because that is what will make it unbearable.
Yeah. Well, and I've got one of those in-room units. My window wasn't wide enough to get a window AC, so I've got one of those standing ones that has a tube that drains into a basin. So I've been using that to water my plants. And they need the water because it's so hot. Although, man, I actually need to get around to picking them. They're just ripening on this branch right now. and I need to. I'm probably gonna pickle the peppers that I have right now. Um, but I met some neighbors who are also kind of like foodie people, and they. But it's great because they're stoners and they're like really into nerdy shit. One of them works at Cartoon Network.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So I was actually able to like ask around with him and some of the people he knows about, getting some voice work possibly. So one of my things for this week is going to be reactivating my old like voice audition website profiles and getting back into that because uh, yeah, I feel like one, I mean, it's something I've always wanted to do, but two, I have a huge edge being slightly bilingual and knowing a lot of Japanese.
Yeah, if you can get in with the right places, a voice acting career can be its own pretty sizable benefit.
Yeah. Well, and think about it in terms of not only like animation and dubbing, but also video games. Like, video
Yeah.
games is a trove for voice actors. It's kind of a weird experience being on a studio lot in general. But this time was particularly weird because they've started up studio tours again. So this was like my first time in at least 2 years of like having tour people pass me and just being like, huh, I wonder if they're thinking like, I wonder if they're like, who's that? Like, what is his job? That's a weird thing to be part of the tour. Making part of the tour. Oh man, I can't wait for this February when season 3 of Picard comes out. I haven't been watching it, but I'm really excited to see the stuff I'm in.
I'm just over here playing soccer.
Yeah, the physics engine in this game is fun. I'm glad that they make it so you can play with the ball. I think there's also a ball on the skate park level that you can play with. Wait. Where are you? Your foot stopped it. Did you see that? Huh, that's interesting. You actually moved back from the pressure.
Yeah, I didn't jump before. Your shot pushed me into the air.
Oh, that you didn't. Oh, wow, that's hilarious. All right, enough nonsense. Back to work. Back to work, everybody. Oh man, I still need to watch the second part of In Space too, because I only did like the reaction video to part 1, and then I never got around. I don't think I'm gonna do reaction video for part 2. I think I'm just gonna watch it.
Yeah, I never ended up watching it all thoroughly. I did do a bit of exploration and I got to the end of the story,
Mm-hmm.
but I kind of started falling out. Like, it's a really cool project. I think I like Heist a little bit better, so I was more interested in finishing everything with Heist, but
Yeah, this one has a little bit more of like a Stanley Parable quality, where like a lot of your decisions kind of end up being futile, and you kind of refork back to the same couple of endings, which honestly is much smarter way to go when it comes to writing the thing, because the script is already enormous. That's the thing with the choose your own adventures. Like, it just takes so much writing.
yeah, I mean, even with what he did for Heist, like, that required a number of different locations, and then some things that you just couldn't do on location, so they had, like, the puppet section and whatever to cover things you just can't do physically. And when you refine the story a little more, you can just keep better control of where everything is, because you just get variations on what happens in the engine room set that you already built for the
Yeah.
main show.
You know what's crazy though is I did like a really thorough run of it, and when I finally did, I finally let myself watch some other people's runs of it, and I still found videos that I had not seen that were like conditional, where it was like, oh, I've made this choice before, but because I had already done this, that came out a different way.
Yeah, I would be fascinated to see how the actual like YouTube architecture of setting up all of those interlocking hidden videos works, because I'm sure there are a few variations where like you can see basically the same video, but it will lead somewhere different at the end depending on
Your watch history.
how you've gotten there.
Yeah. Well, and I kind of, I played with it a little bit because there is that hidden video in Dr. Watts that I think really only one person has found so far. And I basically used that hidden video mechanism to do it. So I got a kind of a glimpse of how it would work, but I don't know how it would be for something like that where you kind of have an if-then scenario with like, hey, if this video was already watched, then they're going to get this video, not this one. I mean, the easy way would just to be to have it be a whole separate decision tree where you just use the same trigger video for that step, but I don't
Yeah, I
know.
mean, you might have to. I don't know how much effort YouTube would have actually put into setting up the necessary architecture to do that, because I've seen a few other fairly basic projects do similar things. Like uh, back in the League of Legends days, I remember seeing at least one video that someone had put together that was like a choose your own adventure of playing a segment, and so it would lead to some different pre-recorded interactions, but that's still basically just linking from one video to the next, and I don't know exactly what it would take to make a more complicated structure, but I don't
Yeah,
know if YouTube would ever bother to give the tools, because that's not really like an art form that YouTube intended to exist on their platform. It's people just using the tools they have to make something more
interactive.
interesting.
Yeah. Speaking of League, have you seen Arcane yet?
I did not watch all of it, but Amy did, so I ended up seeing at least about half of it. Yes, it was very good.
I haven't taken a peek just yet, so but I plan to. I mean, it's definitely something that a lot of reaction people are watching, and so if I want to watch them react to it, I usually have to watch the thing. That's actually been one of the biggest motivators of me actually watching something or not lately. Because usually when they're getting those, they come from, recommendations most often in the form of a poll. So, like, they don't usually get something unless it's something that's already hitting the zeitgeist pretty hard.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot easier to chase close on the heels of each trend than to be the one to try to set the new trend.
Wait, what equipment do I have now? Oh, still. All right, fine.
Yeah, no, I didn't buy any new equipment.
Right, okay, fine.
Uh,
I mean, that
this
is good
will
because.
do enough for the next washer.
Oh, that's good, yeah. And I think the best way to go, and you can take or leave this advice, but I always just save up for the next tier of washer. Because it's the most expensive upgrade, but it's also the one that seems to make the most difference, I think.
Yeah, we'll see. I haven't, like, I bought all of the basic nozzles and then the first two extenders because they're all really cheap for the first gun.
Yeah.
And I haven't really used, like, I've done almost everything so far with just the yellow tip because,
Oh, the yellow's the way to go.
yeah, it's the best for just doing the steady, tight lines. I use the green for a little bit of the wide patio, and I think I use the nozzle extender, like, once. There aren't a lot of things you'll often need that for until I think we start getting towards some of the later, like, really odd shaped structures.
Oh, see,
Because,
I always just leave the extender on.
yeah, I've just got mine on the stubby gun at the moment. It's been working well enough because I tend to just get up close to just about everything I'm cleaning.
Ah, stubby gun, stubby gun. Well, and yeah, there's sometimes I have to switch back to stubby gun because if you're too close to something, it won't let you spray.
Yeah.
Which is probably just a safety guideline for actual power washers, I imagine. Yeah. I remember getting to use one briefly. I think it was like 10, but it was just back when my other grandpa died. and we were cleaning out his auto shop. He had a little shop out in the middle of nowhere. And one of the first things my dad told me was, do not ever put your finger in front of the nozzle. It will slice your finger off. Not, it'll hurt, it'll slice it off. And I believed him.
Yeah, that's an important point to make with a child, because it's very easy to go, well, it's water. Water can't really hurt.
Oh, child. Water destroys all in time.
Oh, speaking of childhood lessons, were you one of those kids that learned how a cigarette lighter worked by being left unattended in the car?
And sticking your tongue on it? Yes.
Wait, you used your tongue?
Yes!
I only burned the tip of my finger.
Yeah, but, I've got a lifelong oral fixation. We're still working on it.
There are good things to stick your tongue in, and there are bad things to stick your tongue in.
And the only way to learn is to try! Hear that, kids? Stick your mouth on everything. It's the only way to learn. I just imagined the more you know graphic I'm going to use after that. But, I have a big appreciation for lessons learned the hard way, because they do stick better. And if there's a little bit of a story and some pain involved, then, that can be fun looking back. We've all got stories. One show that I did start watching is Severance on Apple TV+. Have you heard anything about this?
No, I'm not familiar with it.
So it's created by Ben Stiller, I think. It's getting a lot of good attention because it's like a really nice high concept sci-fi. Think of it like it's like a blend of Office Space and I'm trying to think. It's like Office Space in a more like Black Mirror kind of context. Kind of don't know how much to tell you because even telling you the premise of the show kind of is a little bit of a spoiler for some stuff in the first couple episodes, so I don't think I will. But it's starring Adam Scott, and it has to deal with the concept of separating your work life and your home life. And that's all I'll say. But yeah, it's real short. It's one of those, it's like 9 episodes for the first season or something like that. But yeah, it's some interesting stuff. Actually, you remember the episode of Doctor Who with like the vat of goo that they used to make like clones to operate the acid mines?
Yeah.
It's kind of that. It's not a dissimilar concept.
Like clones or false selves as a work body and keeping that life separate from a home life.
Yeah. So there are a lot of interesting philosophical conundrums that kind of arise from that. I actually need to finish the first season still. But, always like to see actors I like still getting work. Glad Adam Scott is still out there. Because, especially, when somebody's on a hit show like Parks and Rec or The Office, you kind of worry about that after that. Like, oh boy, are you going to work ever again? Speaking of, I ran into that, every once in a while they send somebody posts the video of, all of the now well-known actors who auditioned for parts in The Office and didn't get it. So, you see, Patton Oswalt auditioning for Dwight. You see Seth Rogen auditioning for Dwight. Adam Scott auditioned for Jim. Bob Odenkirk auditioning for Michael Scott, which was interesting. look who got that platform. No wonder you were quiet. You were finishing something off. You were concentrating.
Yeah, I think I've just got the last of the slide itself.
Oh shit, I didn't even realize I didn't finish that. Oh right, because the soccer ball. It's like, how did I get pulled from that?
Oh no, not the Stegosaurus, though that does still need
Oh, the other slide, yeah.
The central body slide. I'm working.
Oh yeah, that one has some crevices. I remember that one being a bitch. So I've kind of been teaching this new friend how to bake a little bit, because she's not super confident in the kitchen. Last time she was over, we made a cherry pie. And it was then that I realized the most important words in the cherry pie recipe. Words. So, the last step of the instruction is let cool for at least 2 hours. Turns out the most important words in that sentence were at least. You know what happens to a fruit pie if you cut into it too early, Steven?
Probably nothing good.
You get fruit lava. That's what you get. You get fruit lava oozing everywhere. Still turned out pretty good. Cherries were a little firm, though. Ooh.
Isn't the point of cooking them to lava temperatures to soften them?
Yeah, I'm thinking we should have let it sit in the sugar mixture for a little while before we actually put it in the crust. Like, I think they were just really unripe cherries. Which is probably why it was also so hard to pit them. Ooh, but I did get to go to a restaurant supply store and buy a cherry pitter. And bought, like, 3 impulse items while I was there. It's this place called Chef's Toys. And it's one of those places just like super streamlined. Everything they have is commercial quality, so they only have one brand of everything. But they have everything that you would ever need. It's so nice. Especially for the foodie wannabe home chef crowd. That's me!
The name of their business just makes me think of Alton Brown. Did you ever watch Cutthroat Kitchen?
Yeah, a little bit.
God, that series was
It's so good!
There are a lot of really entertaining cooking shows, but Alton Brown's personality and just the goofy shit they let him get away with was so fun.
Yeah, well, and I think, like, the actual sabotages are really interesting, too. Like, and they actually affect the game in a really interesting way. And I love that, like, the judges, like, okay, they don't know what you had to deal with, so you'll solely be judged off of the final product. And I'm like, yes, judge them. Tell me what those fries made out of instant mashed potatoes taste like. Yeah, I'm also a fan of Chopped, and I kind of wish Alton Brown hosted that one as well. Did you ever see the Hot Ones episode on Alton Brown?
No. I didn't really watch any of that series.
Okay, no, actually, so I can give you a list of ones to watch for that, because there are, like, I mean, they're all really good, because Sean Evans, the guy who hosts it, is actually, like, a surprisingly good interviewer. Like, so much so that there are montage videos people put together of just his guests going, wow, you have a really good research department. Or like, wow, you're a really good interviewer. I'm enjoying this. But one of the ones you definitely have to watch is the one with Alton Brown. One, because he's one of the only people that actually ranks all of the hot sauces. And 2, because you find out a lot interesting. The way he got into food television is fascinating, and he just, like, right place, right time, and he, like, saw the food TV craze coming, and so, like, he was working in television before he took any culinary classes. So he more understands the entertainment side and learned the food part second. Which explains a lot about the way he's able to, you know, command a TV show. And it explains a lot about the way he shot Good Eats. So I don't know if you ever watched...
Yeah,
Did
Yeah, I did. That was a really entertaining show. Like, I kind of think of that kind of in the same tier as I think of Bill
it's
Nye.
just like Bill
That they
Nye. It's got
they both have that same approach of like, okay, I'm just gonna sit down and write something that's clever and funny and really entertaining to watch, and yeah, you'll learn some stuff along the way.
yeah. But don't think this isn't going to be manic as hell. Editor, you hear that? Manic. I want
It's not too late for them to collaborate on a project.
Bill Nye and Alton Brown.
Yeah.
I'm kind of wondering why that hasn't already happened. Seems like a match made in heaven. Well, and honestly, like, I feel like that's something that's really missing right now when I look at cooking content, is that there's kind of a lack of accessibility again because so much of it is focused on the visual component, especially because like they're all like quick edit things that result in like a final like little picture. um and like what I loved about his show was that like it was a lot about basics, and it was about the chemistry of why a thing works the way it does. And like he and like that was a thing I made sure to touch on a lot when I was teaching this new friend how to cook. Was like the first recipe we made were like cookies, and I was just like I loved like just plugging in the why of something. Like, okay, so like here's where like we're getting the moisture for the recipe, this is where the air, like the bubbles, are going to come from, like this is where, like this is what binds it together, this is just for flavor. And like, and yeah, she was really appreciative of all of that little stuff. And I think, yeah, a lot of that has to do with watching Alton Brown. And even when I make biscuits today, I still think of his episode on biscuits, during every step of the process, because that's one where the ingredient list is so small that every technique, every step, the way you do it matters so much more.
Yeah, well, it's such an important approach because if you just give someone a series of instructions and then show them the final product, they can potentially replicate it.
Yeah.
But if you've gone to the length to actually explain to them what they're doing and why with each step of the process, then they can truly improve beyond just that one lesson you taught them.
Yeah. Well, and they can potentially troubleshoot if something goes wrong. Like, because if somebody's just like wrote following a recipe and something goes awry and they don't know the the principles behind it, they're basically shit out of luck. And I mean, I was also
Yeah.
glad that this was kind of my plan, but I made sure to ask Ivory what her learning style was, and she was like, "Oh no, I like have to handle something." I'm like, "Okay, so you're gonna do everything, and I'll just guide you through it." Because I know for me, I'm the same way. If that muscle memory is so important for learning, like I have to physically interact with something to understand it fully.
Yeah, it's kind of like the last stage of it actually entering memory is the physical portion bringing the theory into it. So if you just sit and watch something get done over and over and get told how it's done, it's not gonna really stick.
Well, and it's great because, like, of course, she's watched British Bake Off, and so while we're going, I'm like, "Oh, hey, have you ever seen British Bake Off?" Okay, well, this is this, which is something they do a lot on that show, and she's like, "Oh yeah," and like, not only now can she do that thing, but like, if she ever watches the show again, she'll have a greater understanding of what's actually happening. Which is also funny to me because that's like a cooking show where I would say a lot of people that are watching it don't really have any idea how to cook or bake, and don't really have an intent on actually learning how to cook a lot of this stuff. But there's just so much else going on in terms of charm there that they're like those are the other reasons people watch it. Like, some people watch it for the hosts, some people watch it for um, just the shots of the desserts themselves, some people watch it for the elimination reality aspect. But yeah, I think they actually did like a show, like they did like a little mini series where they basically did like some instructional videos of like, okay, so here's like some baking basics, and I never watched that, but I actually should check that out, see if it's a good beginner program to see, because then I can recommend it to some people.
Yeah, I watched a couple of seasons. I didn't stick with it for the whole way through, and I never saw any of their side content, but it definitely does seem like the kind of production that would be good at producing some of those like side tutorials and explanations, because they have such a great attitude about cooking. Because like the people they bring on, they make a point of telling about like their lives and how the most of them don't actually do anything professionally with baking. It's just something that they've learned to do and enjoy. And that's a great philosophy for the people who want to watch and just go, yeah, I can just start to learn to do some of this stuff for myself when I want to without it having to be a big deal. They never really strive to like over dramatize the show or the contestants.
No, and it's a less competitive. Well, I mean, at least a less cutthroat competitive attitude. Like when things are going wrong, people jump in and help, which I think is another reason why the show is as popular as it is, because it's different from other reality competition shows in that aspect. But it's also the overall attitude, which I think comes from like maybe a thing that's intrinsic to bakers themselves, because I feel like anybody who did learn to bake did it in some kind of family context, either learning to bake for their family or learning to bake with family when they were really young.
Yeah, probably, because especially like baking as a form of cooking is probably the one that requires some of the most hands-on teaching because it's the most touchy.
Yeah,
A
yeah,
small error or change one way or the other can really make the difference in a final product, and it helps so much to have somebody directly showing you how they do it, learning their style and making that part of your style. Then you can just follow a recipe and trust it to work.
yeah. Well, and this was something I didn't realize until I was teaching baking to Ivory, but there's a lot of recipes where a huge step in the quality control part of the process is already knowing what the correct batter looks like. So that means that like if you're ever going to get it right, you have to have somebody teach you the right way one time and be like, "Hey, look, it's supposed to look like this. And if it's like this way, this is what you did wrong. If it's this way, this is what you did wrong." And yeah, no, it's and you're right, it is touchy because so much of the success of it revolves around like the texture and the consistency, and a lot of that is in proper mixing, and not only like mixing with proper technique, but also mixing in just the right order, which is crazy because order matters so much in baking. Whereas like a lot of recipes, you basically throw in a lot of shit in a pan and just making sure that it doesn't burn.
Yeah, as long as everything reaches the final temperature at the end, then you're pretty good.
The final temperature.
Yeah, I actually don't do a whole lot of baking, partly because I'm not great at like getting those exact measurements. So there's a handful of things that I've learned and I'm okay with those. And let's see, I think the most recent thing that I actually learned how to do that qualifies as baking would be homemade pizza crust. And
Yay!
that mostly just works because I had such a simple, straightforward recipe on the exact process, proofing the dough, and baking it in a cast iron skillet, that it was really easy for me to follow and work on.
Yeah, cast irons are great for pizza.
Cast irons are great in general. I seriously use it for
Yeah.
like half of my cooking now.
Oh yeah. I mean, once you got one, that kind of is what tends to happen. Uh, yeah. No, totally. Actually, one of my impulse buys at Chef's Toys was some of those commercial metal mesh pizza pans. Like
Oh
I'm
yeah,
I'm pretty sure they're the type you would have used at Domino's, right?
yep.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, no, that's gonna up my pizza game by quite a bit. They were only like $8 a piece too. I got two of them, along with my cherry stoner, which was like $25. But you know, it was really solidly made, so it was probably worth it. I saw some like really cheap plastic ones on Amazon for like $10, but I'm just like, this is the kind of thing I really only want to have to buy once, so I might as well just get the nicer one.
Yeah, and especially when it's something that you're using for like one specific highly repetitive process, you want to make sure it's really good at that
Yeah.
process. Because if you've got a cheap one, that just means that your long cherry prep phase is frustrating every time you do it.
That's
And you don't
true.
want
It's
that when you've bought a tool for the job.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and you make a good point. It does take a long time because I let Ivory do all of the cherry pitting because she, like me, is very meditative when it comes to uh, repetitive manual tasks. But yeah, that was one thing that goes kind of made clear to me. It's like, wow, this step takes a really long time because you have to go one cherry at a time. But yeah, I didn't even think about that. Like, if I had gotten a cheap one, that would make that whole thing just take that little bit longer. Although there was kind of a moment of clarity when it came to the genetics of American produce because um, some of the cherries were almost too big for the cherry stoner that we were using, which was made in Germany. And I was like, I feel like this is American agriculture at play here. Big yields, everything is bred for size. Oh, the underside is probably what needs doing on that. Well, I guess look at this then.
Yeah, this map, there's a lot of stuff that like you'll start cleaning, and it's just not going to be done cleaning for a while because it's the entire structure,
Yeah,
including one piece.
three-dimensional. I mean, that's the great thing about the houses, that you only have to clean the outside.